The morning sky was painted in shades of pink and gold when 19-year-old Lieutenant Maya Chen climbed into the cockpit of her fighter jet. Her hands moved quickly across the controls, checking every switch and button with practiced ease. The base was quiet at this hour just before 6 a.m., and she could hear the distant sound of waves crashing against the coastline. Maya had dreamed of this moment her entire life, but nothing could have prepared her for what was about to happen. She was the youngest pilot ever to earn her wings in the Air Force, a record that made headlines across the country just 3 months ago. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Her commanding officer, Colonel Richards, approached the aircraft with a tablet in his hand. "Chen, we've got movement on the radar," he said, his voice steady but concerned. 3 unidentified aircraft crossing into our airspace from the east. We need eyes up there now. Maya felt her heart skip a beat, but she nodded firmly. This wasn't a training exercise anymore. This was real. She had flown dozens of missions since joining the squadron, but they had all been routine patrols. Nothing like this. Colonel Richards looked at her for a long moment, as if searching for any sign of doubt in her eyes. "You've got this, Lieutenant. Trust your training." Maya pulled on her helmet and gave a thumbs up to the ground crew, the canopy lowered with a hydraulic hiss, sealing her inside the cockpit. She could feel the power of the jet engines rumbling beneath her, waiting to be unleashed. Her wingman, Captain James Hawk Morrison, was already in position on the runway beside her. His voice crackled through her radio. "Ready when you are, rookie," he said with a hint of warmth in his tone. Despite the teasing nickname, Hawk had been her mentor from day one, teaching her everything the academy couldn't. Maya took a deep breath and pressed the throttle forward. The jet roared down the runway, gathering speed with each passing second. The world outside became a blur of gray concrete and green grass. At exactly 160 knots, Maya pulled back on the stick and the aircraft lifted gracefully into the sky. The sensation never got old. That moment when the wheels left the ground and she was flying. Free. Powerful. The base grew smaller below her as she climbed higher, breaking through a thin layer of clouds. Hawk's jet appeared beside her, matching her altitude and speed perfectly. Together, they turned toward the eastern sector where the unknown aircraft had been spotted. "Command, this is Viper 1. We are airborne and heading to intercept," Maya reported, using her call sign. Her voice was calm, professional. Everything her instructors had taught her was coming back now. "Stay focused. Stay sharp. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment." The radio crackled with static before the air traffic controller responded. "Copy that, Viper 1. Unknown aircraft are currently at bearing 090, distance 40 miles and closing. Proceed with caution, 40 miles. At their current speed, that meant they would make visual contact in less than 5 minutes. Maya scanned the sky ahead, seeing nothing but endless blue stretching to the horizon. Her radar screen showed 3 blips moving in formation, heading directly toward their coastline. Who were they? What did they want? The questions spun through her mind, but she pushed them aside. There would be time for questions later. Right now, she needed to focus on the mission. Hawk's voice came through again. "Stay tight, Maya. We identify them, warn them off, and escort them out if necessary. Standard procedure, but nothing about this felt standard." Maya had studied countless scenarios in flight school, memorized protocols and regulations until they were burned into her brain. Yet sitting here 30,000 feet above the ocean with unknown aircraft approaching, everything felt different. Real consequences. Real danger. Her gloved hands gripped the control stick a little tighter. The radar showed the distance closing fast. 30 miles. 25. 20. She squinted into the distance and saw them. 3 dark shapes against the morning sky, flying in a tight V formation. "Viper 1 has visual contact," Maya reported. Her pulse was racing now, but her voice remained steady. Years of training had prepared her for this exact moment. She flipped a switch on her console, activating the identification system. The computer analyzed the shapes ahead, comparing them against a database of known aircraft. The screen flickered and then displayed the results. Her blood ran cold. Enemy fighters. Advanced models, faster and more heavily armed than intelligence reports had suggested. This wasn't a simple airspace violation. This was a probe, a test to see how quickly they would respond. Hawk saw it too. "Command, be advised, we have positive ID on 3 hostile fighters. Request instructions." There was a long pause. longer than Maya would have liked. She could imagine the chaos back at the operations center, officers scrambling, phones ringing, decisions being made by people far from the sky. Finally, the controller's voice returned. Viper 1, Viper 2, you are cleared to engage if fired upon. Attempt radio contact and warn them to turn back immediately. Maya switched to the International Emergency Frequency, the channel that all military pilots monitored. Unidentified aircraft, this is Coalition forces. You are violating our airspace. Change course immediately or we will be forced to take action. Her words hung in the air, met only by silence. She repeated the warning, slower this time, making sure every word was clear. Still nothing. The three enemy fighters continued on their path, unwavering, as if Maya and Hawk didn't even exist. It was a clear message, they weren't here to talk. They're not responding, Hawk said, frustration creeping into his voice. This doesn't feel right, Maya, something's off. He was right. Standard procedure would have the enemy fighters either turning back or at least acknowledging the warning. This complete silence was unusual, almost like they wanted a confrontation. Maya checked her weapon systems. Everything was armed and ready. She had trained for air-to-air combat hundreds of times in simulators, but never once in actual combat. Her instructors always said the first real engagement was when you discovered what kind of pilot you truly were. Then everything changed. Maya's radar suddenly lit up like a Christmas tree. New contacts, lots of them, appearing from multiple directions. Hawk, are you seeing this? She called out, her voice rising slightly despite her efforts to stay calm. What had been 3 enemy fighters was now 15, maybe 20. They had been hidden somehow, flying low or using some kind of electronic countermeasure to mask their presence, and now they were surrounding Maya and Hawk in a carefully coordinated trap. Command, this is Viper 2. We have multiple hostile contacts, I repeat. Multiple hostiles. Hawk's voice was urgent now. We need backup immediately. The response came back quickly, but it wasn't what they wanted to hear. Viper 2. Nearest support is 12 minutes out. You need to hold your position and avoid engagement if possible. 12 minutes. In aerial combat, that might as well have been 12 hours. Maya felt her stomach tighten as she watched the enemy jets closing in from every direction. They were outnumbered 10-1. Maya, we need to run, Hawk said firmly. We can't take on this many aircraft. Command wants us to pull back and wait for support. He was right, of course. Every tactical manual said the same thing. Don't engage when outnumbered. Preserve your aircraft and pilot for another day. But as Maya looked at her radar, she realized something that made her choice much harder. If they ran, if they pulled back even a few miles, those enemy fighters would be in position to strike the coastal cities below. Thousands of innocent people were just waking up, having breakfast with their families, heading to work. They had no idea danger was screaming toward them at supersonic speeds. Hawk, Maya said quietly, her decision made. If we fall back, they'll have a clear shot at the coast. We're all that's standing between them and the cities. There was a long silence on the radio. She could imagine Hawk running the same calculations in his head, weighing the odds, thinking about his wife and 2 young daughters back home. Finally he spoke, and there was something like pride in his voice. Then I guess we hold the line, rookie. Command, be advised. Viper 1 and Viper 2 are engaging to protect civilian areas. Send that back up as fast as you can. The enemy fighters were close now, close enough that Maya could see the sunlight glinting off their canopies. They moved with precision, clearly experienced pilots who had flown together many times before. Maya's mind raced through every tactical lesson she had ever learned. She was outnumbered, outgunned, and facing pilots who probably had more combat experience than she had total flight hours. But she also had something they might not expect. She had nothing to lose and everything to fight for. Sometimes that made all the difference. Hawk, split formation on my mark, Maya commanded, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. We make them think we're running, draw them away from each other, then we turn and fight. Hit fast, hit hard, and don't give them time to coordinate. It was a risky strategy, something she had read about in historical accounts of outnumbered pilots who survived impossible odds. Hawk didn't hesitate. Copy that. On your mark, Viper 1. Maya counted down in her head. 3, 2, 1. Break! Both jets peeled away in opposite directions, climbing hard and fast. The enemy formation, as she hoped, split to pursue them. 6 fighters followed Maya, angling their noses up to match her climb. The others went after Hawk. The sky became a deadly dance of machines and minds, each pilot trying to outthink and outmaneuver the others. Maya pulled her jet into a steep climb, pushing the engines to their limits. The G-forces pressed her back into her seat, making every movement an effort. But she had trained for this, spent countless hours in the centrifuge learning how to function under pressure. At 40,000 feet, with the enemy fighters struggling to match her climb rate, Maya did something unexpected. She killed her engines and let the nose of her aircraft tip forward. For a heart-stopping moment, she was hanging in the sky, momentum carrying her up even as gravity began to pull her down. The enemy pilots, surprised by the maneuver, shot past her, unable to slow down quickly enough. Maya restarted her engines and dropped into a controlled dive, now behind the very fighters that had been chasing her. Her targeting computer locked onto the nearest enemy jet. "Fox 2, she called out, launching a missile. The missile streaked through the air, trailing white smoke. The enemy pilot saw it coming and tried to evade, throwing his aircraft into a series of violent turns. But Maya's shot had been perfectly timed. The missile connected, and the enemy fighter exploded in a ball of orange flame. Maya didn't have time to celebrate. The other 5 fighters were already turning back toward her, and now they were angry. Tracer rounds cut through the air around her cockpit as they opened fire. She dove hard, dropping altitude fast, using the clouds below as cover. "Viper 1, I'm engaged with 8 hostiles." Hawk's voice came through, strained with the effort of combat maneuvering. "Got one, but these guys are good." "Real good." Maya's heart sank. Hawk was the most experienced pilot in their squadron, and if he was struggling, they were in serious trouble. She burst through the cloud layer and immediately pulled into a tight turn, trying to shake the fighters still on her tail. Her jet groaned under the stress, metal flexing and rivets straining. The airspeed indicator spun wildly as she pushed the aircraft beyond its normal limits. Then her luck ran out. Warning alarms screamed in her cockpit as enemy missiles locked onto her aircraft. She deployed countermeasures, bright flares shooting out in all directions to confuse the heat-seeking weapons. One missile went wide, chasing a flare into empty sky. But the second one kept coming. Maya pulled up hard, climbing vertical, trying to bleed off the missile's energy. Higher and higher she went until her jet was barely moving, almost stalling. The missile, unable to pull up as sharply, passed beneath her and detonated harmlessly below. But now Maya was in trouble. Her aircraft was moving too slowly, an easy target. Enemy fighters were positioning for the kill, their weapons hot and ready. This was it, she thought. This was how her record-breaking career would end. Shot down at 19 before she really had a chance to prove herself. She thought of her parents, how proud they had been at her graduation ceremony. She thought of the young girls who had written her letters, saying she was their hero, that she made them believe they could be pilots too. Maya closed her eyes for just a second, whispering a prayer. Then the radio exploded with new voices. "Viper 1, Viper 2, cavalry has arrived." It was backup, a full squadron of friendly fighters screaming in from the west. They must have broken every speed record getting there. Maya opened her eyes and saw them. 12 beautiful jets with their weapon systems lighting up the enemy aircraft. The enemy fighters, suddenly outnumbered and outmaneuvered, broke formation and scattered. Some tried to run, others attempted to fight, but it was over. The surprise and numerical advantage they had counted on was gone. Maya managed to coax her struggling jet back to level flight. Her fuel was low. Her aircraft was damaged from the extreme maneuvering, and her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the stick. But she was alive. Hawk's voice came through, sounding equally exhausted. "Maya, you still with us?" She managed a weak laugh. "Barely, Hawk, barely." The backup squadron leader chimed in. "Viper 1, Viper 2, excellent work holding them off. Let's escort you two home. You've earned a rest." The flight back to base was the longest of Maya's life. Every minute seemed to stretch into an hour as she nursed her damaged aircraft through the sky. Other pilots formed up around her, a protective formation ensuring she made it home safely. The sun was higher now, burning away the morning mist, revealing the coastline where thousands of people went about their day, never knowing how close danger had come. Maya looked down at those cities and felt something shift inside her. This was why she flew. This was why she had worked so hard, trained so relentlessly, pushed herself beyond what anyone thought possible. Landing was tricky with her damaged aircraft, but Maya brought it down smoothly, the wheels kissing the runway at exactly the right moment. Emergency vehicles raced alongside her jet as she taxied to a stop. The moment the canopy opened, fresh air rushed in and Maya realized she had been holding her breath. Her legs were weak as she climbed down, and crew members had to help her to solid ground. Colonel Richards was there, his face a mixture of relief and something else, respect maybe, or awe. "Lieutenant Chen," he said formally, but his eyes were warm. That was either the bravest or the craziest thing I've ever seen a pilot do. Maya straightened despite her exhaustion, trying to remember how to salute properly. "Just doing my job, sir." Hawk appeared beside her, pulling off his helmet. His hair was soaked with sweat, and there were stress lines around his eyes that hadn't been there this morning. He looked at Maya for a long moment, then held out his hand. "You're not a rookie anymore," he said simply. "Today you became a real fighter pilot." The debriefing lasted hours. Intelligence officers wanted to know everything. Every move the enemy fighters made, every tactic they used, every detail Maya could remember. She answered their questions as best she could, though parts of the battle were already becoming a blur. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. When they finally let her go, it was past 7 p.m., and the base was quiet again. Maya walked to her quarters slowly, every muscle aching. She found a stack of messages waiting for her. Some were from other pilots congratulating her on the successful engagement. Others were from news agencies wanting interviews. There was even one from the Chief of Staff commending her actions. But the one that made Maya smile was a simple text from her mother. "Saw the news. So proud of you. Come home safe." Maya sat on her bunk and finally let herself feel everything she had been holding back. The fear, the exhilaration, the weight of the lives she had protected. Outside her window, she could see crew members working on her jet under bright floodlights. The aircraft had taken a beating but would fly again. Just like her, Maya thought. She had been tested today in ways she never imagined. Pushed to the very edge of her abilities and beyond, she had discovered things about herself in those desperate moments 30,000 feet above the ocean. That she could stay calm when surrounded. That she could make impossible decisions under pressure. That she had the courage to face overwhelming odds when people needed protecting. The youngest pilot in history had faced her first real battle and survived. More than survived, she had proven that age and experience mattered less than heart and determination. Maya knew this was just the beginning. There would be more missions, more challenges, more moments when she would have to dig deep and find strength she didn't know she had. But tonight, as the stars began appearing in the darkening sky, she allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. She had earned her place among the warriors. She had become exactly what she always dreamed of being: a guardian of the sky, a protector of the innocent, a fighter pilot in every sense of the word. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to prove herself. But tomorrow could wait. Tonight, Maya Chen, the youngest pilot in history, could rest knowing she had done her duty and done it well. The enemy jets had surrounded her, tried to overwhelm her, attempted to break her spirit. But they had learned what Maya herself had discovered in those desperate moments of combat. That true strength isn't measured in years or experience. It's measured in courage, in the willingness to stand firm when everything tells you to run, in the determination to protect others even when the odds are impossible. And by that measure, Maya Chen was stronger than anyone had imagined.